Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mimeda Day-4. We are very happy to be podcasting this Mimeda Day-4, and it's been great experience for the last four recordings because we were able to talk with the fantastic people about retail media, customer behavior, and how this new media is going to evolve. Today, I have a very special guest. We've been introduced with Jeffrey through IAB Turkey, and I am very grateful for their introduction to Jeffrey to us. And since then, with Jeffrey, we've been discussing how retail media is going to evolve all around the world. And he is now today with us, and he will be sharing with us his valuable opinions and information about how this is going to be the third wave and how retail media is going to change the landscape of the media altogether. So Jeffrey, hello, welcome. I hope to sometime in the future, I hope we can also have you in Turkey in person and maybe have a live chat in front of an audience. But so far, thank you very much for joining us all from USA. And Jeffrey Bustos is actually a VP from IAB, Programmatic Data Center. And he's going to be here with us today and answer some questions that we are very curious to know. So hello, and again, welcome. And actually, I introduced you, but could you actually give us what you do, how you get into retail media, and what projects are you currently working with the IAB?
Yes, very excited to talk to you today. Really impressed with the work that Mimeda has done, and congratulations on your Women's in Excellence Awards in Retail Media, Path to Purchase. So I joined the IAB about 7 months ago, and prior to that, I was doing data and audience strategy and helping e-commerce companies set themselves up for success from a data infrastructure standpoint, making sure they had, the right taxonomy, the right data infrastructure, and also the right metrics. And moved into the IB, where I lead the programmatic data center. And there we look at how to make sure that, customers and brands and publishers are privacy compliant. We're also working a lot in terms of measurement and understanding how measurement is evolving and how we need to make sure it's consistent. And then finally, the conversation today, I've been leading the efforts on retail media and working with both retailers and the brands and agencies to make sure that they're both able to grow at a healthy level and being able to kind of bring the problems that both sides are having and helping kind of elevate those problems and making sure that they can continue to grow, because it is a very fast growing industry, as you said. And within that, we have a buyer's guide that we're working on right now. We're working on standardizing measurement and optimization next year. And then we're also going to start working with retailers to help them understand, how they should be working with data clean rooms, how do they enable DSP, and how do they, partner with an SSP.
Everything you talk about seems quite advanced. And when we say retail media, obviously, CMOs or marketing people understand that this is something to do with retail. But when it comes to details, many people actually do not understand what retail media is and how it's different than other channels, because everyone is talking to, connecting with their consumers nowadays. So how retail media is going to change that or evolve that? And as I said, how is it going to different than, let's say, digital marketing or other traditional media channels that we all know and use?
Yeah, so I think, the name Retail Media Network, it encompasses, I would say, 3 different parts. It encompasses retailers' data, it encompasses e-commerce data, and it also includes the private marketplaces that are transacting on this retailer data. And the way it's different is that retailers sit on really strong first-party data. And this first-party data allows brands to connect with their consumers directly in a much more efficient manner than if you were to use third-party cookies, because this person bought the product, specifically how they're engaging with your brand already. And the second, lucrative part of retail media is the closed loop measurement aspect. The fact that I can measure my media and understand what is the attribution of my online, offsite, and in-store. And then, finally, it's, as I kind of mentioned in the beginning, it's continuing that relationship because, most CPGs don't have that first party infrastructure that other e-commerce companies have. So because of that, the ability that they can now partner with retailers to build that relationship and that consumer trust is very valuable.
But is that why? Because it's called third wave? Maybe because actually consumers more actually trust the brands that they get reliable information from. So there's a trust issue, and also there's a measure issue. So these are and privacy, trust, and measure issues are core of today's marketing agenda. So is that why maybe it's called third wave? Because retail media is now relevant, all those issues that you just mentioned.
Yeah, with the first wave of digital advertising, we saw the rise of search with, Google and Bing, and it was great because consumers were able to connect with brands based on questions they had. And then the second wave would be social, and those would be your Metas, your Twitters, Instagrams, and that enabled brands to build a relationship with that consumer, and they were very valuable in kind of making that connection. The third wave, as that you mentioned, is kind of, I would say, it's really combining both the first and second wave, because you have the performance aspect that the first wave brought, and the intent. Search advertising has that purchase intent. Like, I am searching and I'm like, I want to know the answer to this, so I want to buy this. But it also has that social connection aspect, because retailers do have that connection with the consumer. People are going to retailers a lot, like especially from a grocery perspective. People go grocery shopping a lot. It is a thing that you do either as a family or you do on a daily basis, and you do have that sort of loyalty and you have that consistency. And not only that, I think we don't really put that value in it, but because you're interacting with retailers a lot, they understand your life and they're there for all your life moments. As you get older, I stopped buying Kellogg's, now I buy Kashi cereal. So you're moving through those things, and the retailers there every step. And I think the retail understanding you as a consumer and then helping brands align with my current needs is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, this is where the discussion comes alive. So some discussions say that retailers are using the brand the data for their benefit, but on the other hand, every customer, even when we ask, they say that they want personalized ads rather than mass ads, general ads. So I believe that if retail media is used correctly, it's going to be benefit for all the parties. Customers will benefit really personalized, to the point ads for them. And brands will not throw away the marketing dollars. And at the same time, the retailers will also connect with the consumers at the right time with the right ads. So I think if it is done properly, it's going to be a huge benefit.
No, I completely agree with you. I think that there is a benefit to all parties involved. And to your point of personalization, I think that's a big part. Consumers want personalization, and retailers offer that consumer value exchange either through loyalty programs or just to make streamlining their shopping experience. If I'm trying to find milk alternatives, and the retailer knows that, they can offer me different milk alternatives, which is incredibly valuable. Or inflation is a big topic for consumers nowadays, and the retailer can now offer me better deals and can highlight which products that I'm not buying that maybe are cheaper. And I think it provides a lot of value. And it also, retailers, as I touched on, they really target the moments in my life. So let's say you start working out and you're buying different things, the retailers can be like, hey, maybe you want to buy Gatorade or coconut milk, and they can start recommending things based on the changes in your purchasing behavior, which is incredibly valuable.
So why do you think a brand that the retailer is already selling, like a detergent brand or a soft drink brand, should use retail media? On the other hand, why should a brand is not, sold in the shelf of a retailer? Why should they use it, retail media?
So with the first one, and in the US, we call this endemic. So endemic is a brand that is sold at the retailer. One, you're able to interact with the consumer as they're purchasing, as they're thinking of what they want to buy. And so you really have that, connection with the consumer during the moment where they're either searching on site and on the retailer's website, or they're in store and they're, it's really interesting because the concept of on-site, not really on-site, but online and offline, is really blurred because a lot of people will be at the grocery store looking at products and then they'll be like, oh, I want to get this. So, it's very blurred. And I think that having that relevancy is incredibly important for your brand. And then, I think the second part is the closed loop reporting. You're able to have attribution. And, there's been a lot of changes in privacy. First of all, with with IDFA in iOS 14, when Apple removed cookies from mobile devices, and then, privacy legislation that's going on in Europe, in the US, and just globally overall, about 40% of identifiers are gone. So you're not really able to attribute about 40% of your sales, and retailers offer that closed loop reporting. So as a brand, I know what is driving sales for my brand and what isn't. And, something we've talked a lot about, you mentioned, it's, the fact that your brands are seeing much more efficiencies when they work with you because you're able to offer that reporting. And then for your non-endemic or brands that are not sold at your retailer, like let's say, a car company or insurance company, the fact that you've been with the consumer through their different life stages and their different moments, you're able to really use that data to enhance their life. An example of this would be, if you see that someone all of a sudden start buying more groceries, you can maybe assume that they moved in with someone, or if they buy a lot more groceries, they start buying, diapers. You can then work with a clothing company to start offering baby clothes or, baby beds or things for kids growing up and toys. So it's really understanding, the data that retailers have, and then retailers working with that data to, understand consumer moments and how they can engage with consumers at different moments in their life.
Excellent. Yeah. I can even learn, the different points where brands can connect with the retail media. Excellent. But of course, there's the point of where this budget is going to come. So with the endemic brands, like you said, a detergent or a soft drinks brand that's already working with the retailer, is it a shift from their retail trade, or is it something that will come out from their traditional marketing budget?
It's a little bit of both. So some trade dollars are moving into retail media, and then there's also an incremental media dollars. So some digital media dollars are moving to retail, and there's also incremental. Brands understand the competitive need to be there, and it does really change the playing field, because if we think about this from a amount of products, when you go into a store and you go into an aisle, you have about 20 to 40 products in front of you, all competing, obviously different shelf space for eye level and everything. There's about 40, maybe 60, 100 products that you can choose from. Once you move to on-site, there's 12 products. There's 4 products if you're on mobile. So, I think that's really where the value of retail media really comes, where and our attention spans are getting shorter with, people want that immediacy. So if you're online and you search for something, you're going to look at the 4, maybe 8. There's a saying that, if you want to hide a body, hide it in the second page of Google search results. It's very similar, with any on-site search. And you want to make sure that your brand is there when the consumer's searching. And, the competition, there's less categories the consumer's viewing. So I think that's one of the things you want to really keep in mind, and why a lot of the dollars are shifting there. And then from, brands that are not selling, they are going to start shifting those dollars because they want to be there, and there's been a lot of retail media networks that don't sell the products. Like Gap has their own retail media network, and they show ads for other products that are relevant to what the page is about. Or Marriott is launching their own retail media network, and obviously they don't, and they're looking at how to enhance consumer experiences. So I think that's going to be something we're going to see a lot. But I think that there is going to be if retailers want to get those non-endemic dollars, they need to really improve the way they're measuring, because I think that right now that is a tension point.
So when you mention metrics, so let's talk about metrics and how retail media should be measured and whether they are effective or not. How can we decide that?
I mean, I think that's a main discussion that everyone's having right now. There is frustration on the brand side that they're not able to measure performance across retailers. And they're also not able to, and that also means they're not able to measure across different digital media platforms, which is going to inhibit the growth of retailers, especially when you think about the non-endemic opportunity. Because, if I'm selling the products at the retailer, obviously the closed loop measurement is really important. The fact that my products are important, but if I'm not selling that, like if I'm a car brand or insurance brand, I don't have any incentive to use your data or to do any on-site advertising if your measurement isn't consistent to how I'm measuring my other media. So what we're going to be doing at the IAB is doing standardization across measurement metrics and optimization. What this means is that we're going to work with the retailers, with the agencies, with the ad techs, with the brands, and we're going to decide on 10 metrics that every single retail media network needs to offer. And they need to be consistent, and they need to be not only consistent, because everyone offers impressions, clicks, but they need to be technically defined the same. So an example of this is viewability is 70%. And that would be the definition of viewability. You're able to offer other standards on viewability and other metrics of viewability, but everyone needs to have that. Conversion needs to be based, and these are just examples for the conversation. Conversions would be either 1 click over 14 days or 5 impressions over 14 days. And that would be your conversion attribution window. So we are going to start defining these items. And then that way it's going to make it easier for advertisers to compare performance. Because if one retailer has a 40% viewability and a 30-day conversion window in 1 impression, 5 impressions, so 30-day conversion window and 5 impressions, and then the other retailer has a 70% viewability on 1 impression over 14 days, just because the first retailer gives you a $5 ROAS and the other one gives you a $4 ROAS, if you were to standardize metrics across both of them, the second one might be giving you better performance, but you're not able to compare them right now, which is it is an inhibiting factor. And it is also a point of tension within brands because, and I think we're going to see more standardization, especially with the, inflation and, there's a slowing of the economy or a recession coming. And, brands are going to start, being more mindful of the dollars. I'm not saying that retail media growth will slow down. It will slow down because it can't continue at the rate it's going. It's not going to decline, but brands are going to be asking those questions and are going to start making sure that their retailers are accountable to their viewability metrics and measurement. And then also on the other side, we're also going to be working with brands and agencies to standardize how they want to report. Because on the other side, it's really easy to say like, oh, retailers can fix all this. But on the other side, it's very difficult for retailers to do a lot of the measurement the brands want. And there's also not a standardization. For example, and you probably have this frustration that there's every single brand you work with or agency has a different way to measure incrementality. So you're doing 10, 20, 30 different incremental models, So we are going to also go into, these are 5 ways you can measure incrementality for this different use cases. It could be slightly different, but it's also, you know, both sides need to come together, standardize, so they're all talking the same language, and then they're able to make things easier for both of them, and then you'll have that healthy growth for measurement. So that's going to be interesting how that evolves in the coming months or years.
Yeah, but and you all always talk about these measures, but this is one measure for maybe online. Then there's also store, offsite. So every metric or every standard is going to be probably different for each of these new channels.
Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. You know, I think that, you know, especially with, you know, in store, retailers obviously offer that offline attribution. And, you know, as I mentioned before, online, offline is blurring. Like somebody might be in the store and they might search something and they'll buy it in store. Or so it is, you know, definitely blurring. So it is going to be difficult. But I think once you get to the other metrics, if we're able to standardize incrementality, then you're able to do that attribution. Like if you know that incrementality is based on your current category percentage and then change in sales, and then so then you can have that definition, and then you're able to measure incrementality across the different touch points, not just digital, and, you know, from that perspective. But it is difficult. You know, it's I don't have the solution. We're going to be having a working group next year. We're going to be debating the solution. It's going to be a very good debate. You know, I think that there's also the school of thought that yes, a retailer is showing ads in a similar way that a publisher might, but we should evaluate a retailer more as a social platform and look at those kind of standards, because the retailers does have that sign-on data. They do have that consumer relationship. So it's a very interesting narrative to, you know, to have that conversation, because, you know, they both have first-party data. Not arguing. Publishers and retailers have first-party data, but retailers do have transactional data. They have the customer loyalty data that is incredibly valuable, especially with the loss of cookies and loss of identifiers. Having that first-party data from an email address name point of view is very valuable. And, you know, brands and retailers can do a lot from that perspective.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting discussion, because, you know, brands are now get used to millions of impression and CPM metrics. But, you know, in the retailers world, maybe it's not millions of impression, but, you know, quality impression, less amount, but much more high ROAS. So we will probably get to use to different metrics and different measurements. Just like you say, connection to the consumer, branding in front of a different audience. So yeah, things will be different, I think, in terms of retail media measurement as well.
Yeah, and I think one thing we'll see, and you know, if you want to kind of do an analogy, I think retail media is right now where linear and CTV was 5 years ago, where, you know, and there's still that tension where there's two school of thoughts within video, that video should be measured as linear TV or should be measured as digital. And there's kind of these two growing tensions, like, you know, is it currency? Is it measurement? And I think that, you know, as retail media matures in its measurement, there is going to be that, because, you know, to what you said before, retailers have been giving brands performance for decades. You know, it's not like something that, like, you know, you've been letting your brands that you have in store know how they're doing. There's nothing different. It's just that now that we have the digital element, all of a sudden there's an increased level of, I guess, demands from that brand, but obviously at the same time with that retail media offering, that is kind of like, so there is going to come a point where there's going to be a happy medium in which both parties are able to do that, because, you know, retailers have been doing this for a long time. We're just now having to see, like, what is the right approach to do it with this retail media.
Yeah, but when you look at it from the perspective of media and try to do it with the brands that you've been working on, it's a completely different way of looking at things. So I think and the relationships and working on the projects are going to be much more productive and probably much more fun, because when you leave the trade aside, when you think about the retail stores as a branding place, online sites as a branding place, then there are many opportunities between brands and retailers that they will create a connection for their consumers together.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. It's going to be great.
So how do you see the future of the business? Maybe we can't see in the 5 years time, but maybe next year, how do you see it? How is it going to evolve?
I mean, I think one thing that we're going to see a lot is the evolution of ad formats. So, retail media is incredibly valuable. No one's arguing that. The first-party data on targeting consumers, the insights, the closer reporting, it's amazing. But you are missing that consumer experience. When I'm in the store, I'm looking at the product, I hold it in my hand. I see, there's a lot of things that is being lost there. And because of that, we're going to see an evolution of ad formats and creative. And with that, I think there's going to be a strong movement towards video, both from an on-site. So I think a lot of retailers are going to start putting a lot more video content of their products. There's going to be more content. Retailers will need to start producing content so that people can, that enhances people's lives and helps them to understand what products they want to use. And there's also going to be, from a video perspective, there's going to be the opportunity with CTV, because obviously, as a brand, retail media is great, but me advertising in store and me advertising on your website isn't going to create new Migros customers. It's just going to, the people that are coming there, I'm just trying to get them to buy my product, but it's not creating incremental customers. But the offsite opportunity with offsite programmatic and video, especially with CTV, is where there's going to be significant incremental growth, both for the brands and the retailers. And I think that's also where you're going to see the incremental growth for non-endemic, so brands that don't sell products in that store, just like a car brand. That's where the opportunity goes, because I would love to use that retailer data to show ads on a CTV platform.
Exactly. So we have our own streaming TV called Migros TV, and we know that when brands are integrated their content into it, it is for a mass audience, for a very different audience, and it doesn't have to be part of Migros customers as well. But they are able to reach to families with kids and also mostly women customers. But it is, as you say, on a YouTube platform. So things like that, or programmatic outdoor, for instance, integration with these different channels actually will make retail media much more attractive and much more advanced in terms of media.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. I think also we'll see a strong lean into sports, and we see that with Amazon and in the NFL in the US, and obviously sports is probably across all countries, obviously different types of sports, but sports is a place where you can really have that massive scale, even today, because obviously we know that the TV landscape is very fragmented with like Netflix, Hulu, HBO. It's not the same level of scale you were getting 20 years ago, but sports still has that scale, especially with soccer, and there's a significant amount of scales. I think there's going to be a lot of partnerships ability there. And I think there's also going to be a lot of, with the ads being shown as pre-rolls, we'll continue to see that. But I think there's going to be more product placement. I think we're going to see the introduction of programmatic products within shows, where you can plug in your product within a specific show. That's very future, I would say 5 years. If there's any dynamic creative optimization company listening to this, you should work on that. And I think there's also going to be the emergence of gaming, such as Roblox. I'm not going to say like the metaverse, because I think the metaverse in its literal definition is very infantile to get that scale. But I think that metaverse like gaming platforms such as Roblox do have that significant amount of scale, and there is that partnership capability.
So very exciting days to come. Jeffrey, is there any, last words for this great interview? I mean, it's been inspirational, how it's going to be, how is it going to be in the future, and how the brands should get ready for this third wave. But, please say is there anything that you want to add, and how we can continue to inspire brands in the coming year?
I mean, I think it's just, and I know this is, for a brand, just don't worry about the data so much. Start with the consumer experience and start with what your brand means. And I think that if you focus on that means that makes the retail media connection very easy. And then, working with your retailers, there is value on the, self-service aspect where I can, massively and easily do programmatic, but there's also significant value in the managed service, working with your retailer or your data provider to create those custom segments or probabilistic audiences that, they may not have them from a self-serve perspective, but you can definitely work with them to create specific audiences or specific moments to activate. And then I think it's also having a balance of personalization and relevancy. You can definitely personalize in some aspects from an on-site perspective, but obviously from an in-store perspective, it's about being relevant. You can't really personalize an ad for every single person in store. It's impossible at this moment. And I think just having that balance and making sure, you have the consumer value exchange at every point.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us, from Brooklyn, USA. And, thank you for being part of Mimeda Day-4. So I will say goodbye to all the, listeners, and thank you for joining Mimeda Day. And hopefully you will have a wonderful 2 months left in the 2022 and start a fantastic new year. Okay, thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye.